Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's nice to see you again. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've upgraded my camera and microphone quality. Isn't that awesome? Also, happy Halloween! I don't know why I decided to make this a Halloween video, because it forces a deadline on me, but maybe that's a good thing, who knows? Can you guys guess who I'm dressed as for Halloween? Can you guess? So today we're talking about Sonny with a Chance, which is, it's not a Halloween themed topic at all. I want to get this out by Halloween. That's the only reason why. So I wanted an excuse to wear a Halloween costume. There, I said it. Sonny with a Chance is a Disney Channel TV show that aired from February 2009 to January 2011. The show starred Demi Lovato in the lead role as Sonny Monroe, a plucky 15-year-old person who was uploading sketch comedy videos to the internet and got the opportunity to be on their favorite TV show, So Random. So Random is supposed to be a SNL, all that style TV show where it's like, live sketches being performed once a week. And the sketches are specifically written by the cast of people who are performing them. So Random being a TV show within this TV show is a very interesting element of Sonny with a Chance, I feel like. And I feel like it's not talked about as often. Probably because no one watches it. Sonny with a Chance might be most well known for its drama regarding the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon beef that was happening around this time. Personally, I'm not sure how real a lot of this beef was besides elementary school kids fighting with each other on the playground. But after doing some research, there might be a little validity to this, so we're definitely going to get into that. But other than that and the effervescent enemies to lovers trope that's present within this show, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about SWAC. SWAC is the acronym that I'm going to be using from now on. I mean, I'll probably go back and forth, but I just love saying SWAC. I feel like SWAC is only a footnote in Demi Lovato's career at the Disney Channel, which in itself is only a footnote in Demi Lovato's entire career. Because other TV shows from famous Disney Channel stars like Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez are very well remembered. They're like the flagship series for those people when they worked at Disney Channel. But when it comes to Demi Lovato, I think they were most well known for the movies, the DCOMs that they acted in. So like Princess Protection Program, Camp Rock. Is there more? There doesn't need to be more. 2 was already a lot for a Disney Channel star to have. For SWAC to not be this like really big show at the Disney Channel, and from the future it seems like a flop, is very interesting to me. And I would argue there are 2 reasons why Sonny with a Chance is not taken seriously or not well discussed within Disney Channel spheres. 1, because it was prematurely canceled, which never happens for Disney Channel shows. This was a very special circumstance as to why that happened, and we'll talk about it. And 2, because it's really bad. Like it sucks eggs. I'm sorry guys, I hate to break it to you guys, but I don't like this show. Okay, I say that, but I also really love this show. Just like the relationship between Sonny Monroe and Chad Dillon Cooper, I have also gone through an enemies to lovers arc with this TV show. Because as much as I think there are a lot of very bad elements, I also think there's a lot of really good. And I feel like both don't get talked about, because this show just doesn't get talked about at all. So yeah, unlike my approach to The Sweet Life on Deck, where I just kind of gushed over how much I loved it and only briefly talked about the things that were bad because they weren't that big of a deal, it's gonna pretty much be the opposite. Majority of the things I have to say about this show are going to be negative, but I want you, lovely viewer, to understand that that's okay. And that it's okay that I don't like this show. And it's okay that I also really love this show. Like I said, enemies to lovers. So if you happen to love Sonny with a Chance, I apologize, but also, I think we were on the same page here, right? There's a lot of really great stuff in here. The ships are amazing, but we'll be honest with ourselves, okay? So follow me into this pit of despair and wonder as I deep dive into Sonny with a Chance. More like Sonny with a Chance of unfunny sketches in a failed TV show. I'm talking about this first strictly so I can get it out of the way and not talk about it ever again. So for those who don't know, the Nickelodeon sitcom iCarly aired Season 2, Episode 21 titled I Take on Dingo in June of 2009. In the episode, the characters of iCarly go to the Dingo Channel headquarters, a parody of the Disney Channel, and beat up a group of TV writers for stealing ideas from the iCarly web show for their own series. Many sources have pointed to Sonny with a Chance as being the show that caused the iCarly team to take a swing at Disney in the most obvious way they'd ever had before. And it doesn't help that the show takes two popular elements from Nick-owned properties, specifically ones written by Grossman Dan, who was the showrunner of iCarly, and mashes them together, as well as being outright exclusively removed from the overall Disney Channel extended universe, or the DCEU, which happens to be my favorite DCEU, if anyone was wondering. Oh, and by many sources, I mean absolutely stalking the hell out of the iCarly and SWAC fan wikis simultaneously. That's what I mean by sources, okay? Just as valid as Wikipedia, in my opinion. Here's some trivia that's mostly unknown since no one bothers to do research on the other side of this lukewarm feud. Sonny with a Chance was originally announced in May of 2008 and was still workshopping titles, with names such as Welcome to Mollywood and Welcome to Hollywood. Holly with an I, that is. The series settled on the name it's currently known for, which is a play on the words for the popular phrase, Sunny with a Chance of Rain, if there is anyone out there who didn't get that. First of all, it absolutely appalls me that the way Disney executives create TV shows is by coming up with the name of the show and then just going from there. That's absolutely wild. I'm pretty sure this is how Hannah Montana came to be as well. They wanted a TV show they could also sell music with because money, and thought of a name and then just built a bunch of other bullshit stuff around it. And that's not to discount Hannah Montana as a bad show. That's discussion for another day. But I think it's very clear to see that this is a very, formulaic, cynical way of creating media. It's wild, in my opinion. Second of all, my assumption here is that some people from Nick caught wind of this show's announcement, saw the similarities and ran with it, and made an entire episode of iCarly bashing the network as a whole. I'm not saying it wasn't worth it or well-deserved, because, this show blows chunks, but it seems interesting how little information was publicly available around the time the iCarly episode should have been written, and yet it still got made. Again, I'm not that aware of how, TV show creation works, but since the show didn't start airing until only a few months before the episode of iCarly aired, that means that the show should have been written and recorded before the show had even, created its pilot, or right as the show created its pilot. Another lesser-known fact about Sonny with a Chance is that the show was created by Steve Marmel, who some might recognize as the writer who had previously worked on other Nickelodeon and Paramount projects. So I feel like the pieces are starting to connect now. Another common thing to see with the Disney-Nick battle at the time was actors from Nickelodeon shows disappearing from their programming and popping up on Disney Channel only a few months later, like they were stealing their talent with that Uncle Walt money or something. And apparently this seems to have gone all the way up to the writer and producer level. I mean, Sonny with a Chance is a perfect example of this. The actor who plays Grady was originally on an episode of iCarly, and it was set up to be that character was supposed to be like a reoccurring character, someone you'd see in multiple episodes, but then they just disappear after one. The showrunner Steve Marmel is most well known for being a writer on various animated series such as Family Guy, Johnny Bravo, Fairly Odd Parents, and Danny Phantom. He was a common collaborator and co-writer for Butch Hartman. I think SWAC feeling like a cartoon a lot of the time stems from this, is that the creator didn't really work in the live-action sphere all that much. Again, according to the Wikipedia page, the article that it sources doesn't seem to be up anymore, so I'm sorry that I'm directly quoting Wikipedia. Take this with a grain of salt, I guess. But it was cited that shows like All That and 30 Rock were inspirations for the TV show, which makes sense since the executive producers of Sonny with a Chance were Brian Robbins and Charlotte Bridget. Brian Robbins is currently the president and CEO of Paramount Pictures at Nickelodeon, and was the founder of Awesomeness TV, which absolutely blows my mind to learn about while casually researching Chad Dillon Cooper. I already talked about Awesomeness TV on my channel in a previous video, so if you want to hear my rants on that, check that out. But it's quite bizarre that he has a credit for being an executive producer on Sonny with a Chance, since it seems to be the only Disney Channel project on his entire lineup. Maybe that's where the malice for this show comes from on the side of the Nick writers, being mad at its general existence. This makes me wonder if the online fame and internet aspect of the show was scrapped after the pilot because of this drama, and they couldn't do anything about its involvement in the pilot because it had already been created or something. Again, I'm not too sure. You can tell that there has been some time in between the pilot and the rest of season 1 being written, which is how it is for a lot of these shows. So, I could fully believe that the show was supposed to lean more into the fact that Sonny was like a famous internet celebrity who had a web show or something that Disney decided to scrap because, they were afraid of getting sued or something. I don't know. But the fact that the TV show within Sonny with a Chance, So Random, is very clearly very similar to The Amanda Show and all that, which was Nickelodeon's bread and butter, really does show that they were pulling from Nickelodeon's kind of vibe from around this time. Either way, now that I'm done reading the Wikipedia article to you, let's actually get into talking about the show. So it seems that this show was supposed to be a window into the behind-the-scenes world of childhood show business. There were plenty of shots of characters going about their lives surrounded by metal pipes and exposed lighting fixtures, and it's honestly quite shocking to see because most Disney Channel shows do a very good job of hiding all of that from you. I would have hoped that this sort of creative innovation would have lent to them doing more unique camera angles, but they don't. Because usually the reason why a sitcom can't do a bunch of wacky stuff is because they don't want to show exposed lighting fixtures and pipes. But since they were already showing that for this show, you'd think they would do some more unique stuff with it, but they don't. It's fine. I think the show's concept is one of the main reasons why SWAC doesn't fit within the general DCEU. Again, just like in 30 Rock, we're signing into the reality that we're being shown a real-life look into what it's like to create these shows that we know and love. And so in my mind, shows like So Random and Mackenzie Falls and other TV shows they talk about are shows that exist within the DCEU, and Sonny with a Chance is the sort of fake universe where it's the behind the scenes of all of those shows. You know what I mean? My biggest point for this is that Zac Efron is pretty commonly mentioned and High School Musical is pretty well referenced, but that's also the case for all the other Disney Channel shows. So I'm not here to get into cinematic universe bullshit, but just know that this show is one of the only shows that doesn't fit into the universe. So Sonny with a Chance is a really weird show in the sense that it's very meta and basically all of these actors were going to do a show that was supposed to be a TV show reflection of what their real lives were like. And, by the look of it, this is not a cool and glamorous lifestyle. It's a very horrific and intense life to live. Of course, as the show goes on, they really do abandon a lot of the behind-the-scenes, aspects, and they get just a little bit too whimsical with it, but we'll get there. And, since this show has a very unique premise where they're, consistently on, a studio set, it would make you think, how are they going to do high school plots? Because isn't that the backbone of every Disney Channel and Nickelodeon TV show? That there's a fun and silly quirk that happens, but also they attend high school? And you'd be right. They do go to school, but it's a very different way. A lot of child actors apparently end up actually attending school in the studio, so they can stay there 24/7 and shoot whenever their hours are ready. So a lot of them aren't going to public school or whatever. They're being taught in a storage closet with an on-set teacher for a few hours every day. I thought it was unrealistic that Zora, who is considerably younger than the rest of them, would be in the same class as her, but apparently that's the case. They literally just put the whole cast in a closet and go, go teach now, learn stuff, even though they might all be at different ages and different grades, I think the iCarly behind the scenes clips are a good window into this, that's the only reason why I know this stuff. I was never a child actor. I mean, look at me. We don't get that much of a look into the characters' home lives because it is mostly on a studio set, but what little information we do get about them is actually very interesting and I think is quite cool. I'll talk more about it in depth when we get to the character analysis, but we know for sure that they all just live in shitty, dingy apartments that's the closest to the studio because all of these kids dropped their lives and just carted themselves to LA. Some with their parents and some not. I think the only person we know that has like a real house is Zora, but that's mainly just because they just keep reusing the one house set that they have. It's quite funny. So yeah, the jokes aren't funny. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you guys, but a lot of the jokes are not funny. The majority of this show is supposed to be sketch comedy, and it's real bad. At least in my opinion. You know, comedy is subjective, of course. Although I will give this to the show. A lot of the sketches do seem like actual sketches that would have been on SNL, or would be on SNL to this day. So, like, you know, at least they're being authentic, you know, in their horribleness. I would say that my least favorite sketch is probably Sicky Vicky, mainly because the joke is very surface level, and they didn't really try to do anything else beyond the fact that they have Demi Lovato pretending to be sick and sitting on a bed. Like, the wig doesn't do anything, any of the jokes they make don't work, and the joke always lasts way too long. They don't know what to cut and what to leave. Honestly, they probably do know what to cut, but they just don't want to cut any of it because then they'd have to think of another sketch to add, and that would cause more effort, so they just leave all of the garbage in. It is such a bad sketch, and it's not even fun to watch, like, fall apart from how bad it is. So, definitely not one of my favorites. This seems to be like a common thing in 2010s, like, sketch comedy, is like, you get a person and you put them in a room, they sit on their bed or whatever, or like at their desk, and you just have them be weird and gross and lame, and like that should be the whole joke. It's like, haha, isn't this like kind of weird and gross person like funny? And then they think they're cool because they're recording a vlog, but like they're actually really lame. Like they don't tell any good jokes with it. Like Sicky Vicky is just not funny, and I think it reaches the worst possible place it could reach in the Christmas episode in season 2. Because they just keep cutting back to it, like just over and over and over again. Like poor Demi Lovato had to record so much footage of Sicky Vicky, and it's bad. I'm not a big fan of Dolphin Boy. I'm sorry guys, I know people like Dolphin Boy, I've seen some hype around it, but it's the first thing that you see from this show. The show immediately opens with a sketch, and the sketch is Dolphin Boy. Let's see. Sketches that I like. I actually really like The Real Princesses from New Jersey. I think that sketch is really funny, and I'm surprised they didn't do it as often as they did. I thought it was a much more recurring joke. I guess just because it was, you know... Are they vacuuming? I'm gonna kill myself. The Real Princesses of New Jersey is one of those really weird sketches where it's very topical, and it has that one kind of twist to it that makes it unique. And even though it's very silly, I still think it works pretty well for a sketch within this show. I'm not asking for like very highbrow humor here. I think just doing pretty surface level like Disney princess jokes while also throwing in the whole Jersey Shore parody and the whole Guido-isms of everything, it works just fine for me. I think it's a very funny sketch. There are actually multiple sketches that I thought were more common or more like done more often because they were very memorable, but were only really done once or twice. I think my favorite SWAC sketch of all time is Making Babies Cry. I don't know what it is, but I think it's so funny. Like,
it's what makes me,
I honestly think it's Brandon Michael Smith's performance. He's just so fucking funny. He's really great at physical comedy. Anytime he has to do physical comedy, it's always perfect. Him, Nico and Grady together are really great at physical comedy. Speaking of, another one of my favorite sketches that I wasn't expecting to think was so funny, but it was like the grandma UFC fighting or whatever, like grandma mixed martial arts, where like they're having like a grandma off. Like I thought that was really funny. One sketch that I did like because it fit well within the plot was the one where they parody The Wizard of Oz. Normally I think Wizard of Oz parodies are a bit overdone. Like I think almost every Disney Channel show has done a Wizard of Oz parody, but it actually played really well into the plot. And I think that's probably like, from a storytelling standpoint, the best episode of Sunny with a Chance. I'll insert what episode it is in post, because I can't remember. So the plot of the episode is that Sonny and Tawny are kind of being like pitted as enemies, or like which one do you like more, you know, kind of versus each other in like a magazine. And Sonny just can't have this, well, because it's making Tawny feel upset, so like she wants to make it stop, you know, which makes sense. But also, since Sonny's a main character, that means she must stick her nose in places where it doesn't belong at all. So she like marches up to the magazine studio and like goes to the head Miranda Priestley and is like, hey, stop saying mean things about me and my friends in the magazines. And from that interaction, like, she picks up a lot of like really weird idiosyncrasies about that lady, and then goes and makes like a sketch making fun of her, you know. And it was like really good. It was like they were doing revenge, you know. The fact that it's a Disney Channel show, though, does mean that they have to go, bullying is bad. Like, they have to put like a message, you know. There was no just like ambivalence like they would be Nickelodeon. So that's where you can really tell the difference between networks. If this was Nickelodeon, they would have like fucking keyed her car and not said sorry for it, and not would have felt bad at all, and would have had no legal repercussions at all. But since it's Disney Channel, they only do lighthearted jabs. So the final 1-2 punch they give her is that the lady like hates people who wear the same outfit twice. That's where the beef started, is that apparently Tawny and Sonny wore the same dress once. And so the article was comparing the two and said that Sonny looked better in it or something, which caused Tawny, I think, to shave her head, which is a bit drastic, but whatever. But to get back to her, at a red carpet, they all wear the same outfit that she's wearing, and that like embarrasses her horribly. But it's like a very lighthearted prank as well. And it's like, I like stuff like that because it implies like real life like stuff happening within the show, you know, like the characters are like micro celebrities unto themselves because they're on a famous TV show, you know, so like they get invited to red carpets, and then when they pull silly little pranks like that at the red carpet, like people talk about it and it gets like put in magazines or whatever. Like, imagine if that happened in the modern day. Actually, it did, and people talk about it on Twitter all the time still. So that's like definitely one of my favorite episodes of Sunny with a Chance, and like from a narrative standpoint is the best one because they're not that creative or put that much thought into any other script in the entire show. Season 2 specifically takes a real downgrade in quality, for sure. Pretty noticeably early on in Season 2, this weird thing starts to happen within the show. This weird thing where they'll be doing a bit, like within the show, like the episode there'll be a bit, and then like they'll cut to like a comedy sketch moment, but it's not on the episode of So Random, it's like in real life, and they're like mugging at the camera and like looking at the camera like it's a So Random sketch, but it's the real fucking life, and it's like really, really bizarre to experience, and it's like, it makes it not funny, you know, like the joke wasn't funny to begin with, probably just because I'm a grown-up maybe, or like it's just not my sense of humor, but the fact that it's like it's a sketch taking place in real life just makes it super weird. And I have a distinct memory. I distinctly remember watching all of these episodes on TV while they aired. Like, I've seen every episode of Sunday with a Chance before I went back and did the rewatch. I think a lot of people did watch it because Disney Channel was like in their prime or starting to leave their prime at this point. So like they still had a lot of viewers, you know? But the show in itself, I feel like, has a weird place within people's minds. But besides the point. I remember watching the Tight Pants episode of Sunny with a Chance and being like, that was kind of a bad episode, and just like turning off my TV and going to bed, you know? Like, I remember not liking it. Like, even as a kid, I didn't think it was funny. So that means I haven't matured or like grown at all as a person since I was like 8, or that means it's been bad. It's just a bad piece of television. Who's to say? Another really bad episode? Well, it had potential, but it ended up being a bad episode, was the camping one. It's an episode where, like, the people who work on the show decide to get the Mackenzie Falls cast and the So Random cast on, like a team building mission, like they're, like, in a corporate company, and they go on a camping trip to, like, you know, build friendship, which makes zero sense because they don't need to be friends with each other. I mean, I think the point is that they were actively starting to ruin the production of each other's shows because they were fighting so much, but I feel like a good, like, if you do that again, you'll be fired is enough. Like, I don't think they need to do team building. They're on completely different TV shows. What kind of network is this television network where shows like Mackenzie Falls and So Random are like being put on the same network. I'm not sure, they're not clear on it because I don't think the showrunners ever thought of it themselves, if it is on the same network or if it's just like the same company producing the show and they're on different networks or not. I'm just going to assume the network is supposed to be like a Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network style, like children's production company. But like a show like Mackenzie Falls, which seems to be enjoyed by grown-ups and adults alike, and is supposed to be like a parody of like those cringy CW shows, that doesn't seem like it's also a kid's show. But maybe it is. Maybe it's like House of Anubis. Who knows? I think that's a very charming element of the show, is that like the cast in the TV shows are seen as like group units, you know? They're like cliques within like a high school hierarchy. Like one of the main places they hang out in is like the on-set cafeteria, where it's basically just like a, you know, like an office space. Again, another excuse to like not put a lot of money into the set design, because it can just be like pretty boring looking places, because it's all just like, you know, behind the scenes places that don't need to look cool in the first place. They have like the So Random clique in one area and the Mackenzie Falls clique in another, and then like the vampire TV show, because remember Twilight existed at this time, the little vampire TV show clique in the other. Like, I think it's kind of funny. I feel like on an episode-by-episode basis, this show is pretty easy to get through. Like, you're not going to be appalled or want to put down your TV, your phone, your computer, whatever you're watching it on. You're not going to want to, like, close the tab and walk away out of shame. But there are a few episodes that do that to you, you know. Specifically, the racist one. I didn't like that one a lot. I can't remember the episode number, but it's in season 2. And it's an episode where it involves the Check It Out girls, which, can't believe I forgot to mention the Check It Out girls when I was talking about sketches. The Check It Out girls, they're cute, okay? The only reason why I tolerate them, because I don't think the joke is funny, they don't do good jokes with it, although they could have. You know, there was opportunity. The reason why I tolerate the Check It Out girls is because it is very clearly, like, in my mind, it's an actual SNL sketch that they've done. Like, I don't see any difference. It is a pretty obvious ripoff of the Simmer Down Now sketch from SNL, so I guess that's why I see it as being so similar. Like, it's a direct copy, where they have one catchphrase and they work in the service industry so they can interact with different kinds of people. So I like the Check It Out girls, but not a lot. Like, I tolerate them. An episode with the Check It Out girls where they do a comedy exchange program. Again, it's like a lot of like pretty basic stock high school plots having to be put into this sort of, you know, like TV show behind the scenes format. So like there's like a TV show exchange program from a foreign off-land country, which I don't even think they mentioned in the episode. They get a foreign exchange student to be like a comedy person on an episode of So Random, where they like are one of the Check It Out people, but it's a guy, you know. But the mistake is that it wasn't a comedy foreign exchange. It was like a grocery store foreign exchange. So like Tawny and Sonny go to like a grocery store in a faraway country and think they're doing a sketch in an actual grocery store, but they're actually there to just bag people's groceries. It's not funny, and it's a bit offensive. Will my neighbors ever shut the fuck up? No. The answer is no. They won't. Anyways, I don't know why I got so mad there. I'm sorry, guys. The episode doesn't make sense. It took me like an hour to get through this episode because I kept just pausing and being like, nope, I can't do it. I can't do it. So yeah, that one was pretty bad. Another example of like a really weird reality-breaking episode that I should have mentioned earlier was the High School Musical episode. And I put that in quotes because it has nothing to do with the movie High School Musical, but is like a parody of high school musicals, like Grease and stuff. It's bad. It's like actually really bad. Like, it's not good at all. The plot of the episode, I think, is that the characters of Sunny with a Chance, all of the cast of So Random get fired from So Random, so they have to go be normal teenagers and go to a normal high school. There's a lot of potential there, and I was actually kind of excited when I thought of it, but I realized the idea they had was that they wanted to do a musical episode about high school. So they were like, well, this random cast gets fired and then they have to get put into, but like, obviously you can't fire the whole cast. Like, that makes no sense, but that doesn't matter. Whatever. Like, it's a different plane of reality. I can feasibly believe that the whole cast would get fired and have to go live as normal teenagers. Like, that would be a good plot for an episode. But it just, like, churns along at this really weird pace, and the song is so bad that it makes me think that, like, they weren't prepared to write a song for this episode, which even confuses me more because it's like, it feels like it only exists so they could do a High School Musical, like, parody thing, but, like, the parody is so lazily done and bad that it's like, were they just out of ideas or out of time and just needed to get an episode out? Because that's really what it feels like. It is so bad. And the idea could have been cool, because, like, if the point of this show is supposed to examine, like, the inner lives of child actors, that would have been an interesting idea of, like, what is your life when you're not working as, a 13-year-old? Like, that's very interesting, but no, there was nothing. It's just really bad. It's really, really bad. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It hurts my brain. So yeah, it's not like the entire show is god-awful. There are a lot of good and unique elements, sprinkled within the show. And season 1 feels like it's a little bit better because there's not as many outright just awful episodes. Like, I would say the only, like, really bad episode that comes to mind in season 1 is the pilot. Like, the pilot is so bad that I feel bad that the pilot is not good, because I feel like a lot of people, will go and watch the show and watch the pilot and go like, I can't do this, like, it's too bad, like, I can't watch this. But the show does gradually get better over time. I mean, Chad Dylan Cooper isn't even in the pilot. That's how you know it's bad. But season 2 has a lot more just outright bad episodes, and of course that continues into the spin-off of So Random, which we're not going to talk about for this video. I'm sorry guys, I can't talk about So Random. I probably could actually finish watching it at some point, but I can't bring myself to do it right now. Maybe while I'm editing, if I go back and I watch some episodes, I'll insert some more opinions, but yeah, it was not, I can't do it. It breaks my heart too much. It, like, emotionally affects me, and not just because it's bad television or whatever, because, like, that's besides the point at this point in my life. Like, if the show is bad, I'll still sit through it, but, like, emotionally, I have a hard time dealing with the existence of So Random. So, I can't talk about it right now. That makes it sound a lot more darker than it actually is, but, like, maybe that'll make more sense later on. Anyways, I think the best part of season 2 is Channy, but we won't talk about it now because, like I said, we have Channy has its own section in the video, so let's start with Sonny Monroe, the main character, the titular Sonny in Sonny with a Chance. So, Sonny with a Chance, as a whole, was created as a vehicle for Demi Lovato's Disney career, as far as I know. It seems to be stated that Demi auditioned for both Camp Rock and SWAC at the same time and got both roles, obviously. Although, apparently, Bridget Mendler was also considered for the role of Sonny as well at the time. I don't think Disney Channel auditions work in the same way that normal auditions work. Like, they don't have a show and then have a character and then audition for that character. I think what they do is they, like, come up with these TV shows in a lab, scientifically create them to appeal to certain people so they can sell them certain products, and then just audition for Disney stars and see, like, what type they can cast them as, and then just insert them into these projects that they already have created. So, like, Bridget Mendler was, also auditioned around this time, and Demi Lovato was auditioned. And so they were creating Sonny with a Chance, and they're like, okay, which star are we going to put into the show as a vehicle for? We can either do Bridget Mendler or Demi Lovato. And it's like Demi Lovato, so they just kind of put them in there, Because from what I remember, Disney Channel stars, once they're auditioned and, they get checked off as, like, yes, this can be a star in the making, they sign in their contract that they get a movie and a TV show. At least one of each, And it doesn't matter what movie or what TV show, it's just that you will get one. The only time I've ever seen this really been, like, I've heard about this being altered is in Wizards of Waverly Place, because the show Wizards itself was workshopped around as a TV show for other channels like NBC and CBS and stuff, and Disney Channel just happened to pick it up. And then Paul Murrieta, who created the show, then actually cast people based on what he wanted for the show, which is like how a normal show usually works, right? But Disney Channel does things a lot more cynically and formulaic. Not to say that, like, Demi Lovato didn't want to be in SWAC or anything, or that, like, Demi Lovato wasn't right for the role, although I would argue that kind of was the case. But not because Demi Lovato's a bad actor or anything. Like, that's definitely not the case. It's just that a lot of the time you can kind of see how the cracks in this sort of, like, assembly line way of creating a show can form. Mostly in the script, like I had mentioned, you know, there's a lot of just, like, really, really first draft material there. So who is Sonny as a character? Sonny is your standard type of main character that shows like to put into their teen sitcoms, which is basically like, I'm so loving and so likable that sometimes I get in awkward sitcom situations, you know? I think this is what they morphed Tori from Victorious into over time, where it's like, she loves her friends so much that, like, sometimes it gets wacky, you know? That's a lot of what Sonny does. A lot of the time, Sonny is like, something's happening in the corner with the side characters, I must insert myself into that now. And a lot of the time, it's not the best idea, it's not a good idea to meddle, and sitcom hijinks happen. They even do that very formulaic, like, joke, where it's like, oh, are you gonna pull a Sonny? And they're like, what? It's like, we call, you know, putting yourself into people's business where it doesn't belong, pulling a Sonny, you know, when you meddle, because you meddle a lot, you meddle with people's lives. And that's very true. Like, that's a very proper read of the character of Sonny Monroe, because they are just constantly just in other people's business. And, you know, it's not like it's a bad thing, it's just pretty noticeable, yeah. I think a good episode to highlight this is Season 1, Episode 18, Heart to Heart. I'll talk more about this episode specifically when I talk about Tawny, because it's mostly a Tawny episode. But the example is that Tawny is upset that she keeps getting, like, these very stereotypical, like, dumb blonde roles in commercials and TV, and that her manager keeps giving them to her. So Sonny is like, I'm gonna help you fire your manager because you deserve more. And so she does. But what Sonny doesn't know is that her manager was her mom. So now Tawny is homeless because she fired her mom as being her manager. So now she can't live with her anymore. So now Tawny goes to live with Sonny and her mom in their tiny, shitty apartment. I really do think Sonny was in the wrong in this episode, but also the show should have tried to develop this idea more, or just not done it at all. But like I said, I'll talk about this episode a little bit more when we talk about Tawny. I don't even like continuity anyways, so no need to worry about that. The relationship between Sonny and Tawny I actually do find very interesting. They themselves go through their own little enemies to lovers trope. By that I mean I think they should have dated. But maybe we're not ready for that conversation yet. While I do appreciate their sort of like trust building, friendship building exercises that they do for multiple episodes, I really feel like they didn't dedicate enough time to it, you know? Like, a lot of episodes feel unfocused, and like there's not really an idea of what they want to do, or they have an idea but they don't want to try hard enough to, like, you know, develop it properly. But yeah, Sonny really loves to shove themselves into plots where they don't belong, and I'm all for it. I quite like it, actually. We're going to talk about the romantic elements of Sonny's character, you know, especially when it comes to Chad, when we talk about Channy. But just know that Sonny does actually have a lot of romantic, you know, options available to them. Usually what happens in a lot of these shows is that, like, the adorkable main character will either, like, never get a date, and then they kind of make a joke about, like, you never have a boyfriend, do ya? And yes, while technically for a good majority of the show, Sonny doesn't have a boyfriend, there is a lot of, like, romantic suitors, you know, including Chad. So that's actually quite nice, I think. It was a nice change of pace. I feel like Disney Channel shows didn't court their main characters with many people. Maybe that's me misremembering, though. What I'm saying is that I like that Sonny goes on dates. It's cool, you know. One thing I'll say about Heart to Heart before moving on is that they literally just ripped off the plot from iCarly. Like, literally, exactly from the beginning, where it's like Carly convinces Sam to, you know, stop taking bullshit from her mother, so then she becomes homeless and she moves in with Carly, and Carly's like, I can't have you living here, you're too messy. And in Sonny and Tawny's case, it's Tawny's too much of a diva and too demanding. So they work to repair the obviously toxic and not okay family dynamic just for some peace. Which is wrong. Like, we all agree that that's wrong, right? Another quirky element about Sunny's character to just make her so adorkable is that she's from Wisconsin, so they do a lot of, like, cow and cheese themed jokes with her, you know, because Wisconsin. I think it's kind of nice. I like it when the characters have character to them. You know what I mean? An element of Sunny's character that was just absolutely fumbled, in my opinion, is the use of music. So, as we know, all of these shows are supposed to also be vehicles for music. And I'm assuming we all also know as well that shows like Wizards of Waverly Place had a really hard time trying to insert musical moments for Selena Gomez to do, because the show in no way was supposed to be about that, you know what I mean? And in a certain way, that's the same case with Sunny with a Chance. I think the problem is that they forgot to do it in season 1. So all of a sudden season 2 starts and it's like, by the way guys, Sunny likes to write music and can sing. And it's like, of course Sunny can sing. They're played by Demi Lovato, one of like the best singers of our generation. Like, of course Sonny Monroe is going to be a singer. Like, I don't know why they didn't even bother touching this until season 2. That is what really upsets me, because it's like, because I got really upset and angry at the show when all of a sudden there were just musical elements, and it wasn't, the musical elements aren't what made me upset. That made me upset with Wizards because it just had no place being there, and it was clear that the Disney executives were like, we gotta sell records along with merchandise, guys, come on. And like, you can tell it was like very much forced in that sense. But when it comes to SWAC, it's already a performance-based show where the characters are performers on a TV show. So wouldn't it make sense that Sunny could perform their songs on the show? It does, but it doesn't make sense like fucking 20 episodes later. That's what's infuriating about it. They should have had this be an element of Sunny's character from the very beginning. That, you know, they're a funny comedian, they like posting sketch comedy videos online and making up sketches and stuff, and also they love writing songs and singing music. Like, if you would establish this as a part of the character early on, I would have been fine with it. But the fact that it shows up so late in the show is really bad. It also doesn't help that all of the songs are dog shit. The theme song is great. I love the theme song, So Far So Great, I think is what it's called. It's great. I think it's up there as like some of the best Disney Channel theme songs. So that one's really great. I love the yow at the end. Yow! Adds a lot of charm, guys. Good job. But all of the other songs, they're pretty bad. They're not good at all. Like Me, Myself, and Time, I think, is the first one they play in the show. And it's a bit of a stinker. I think the one in the Halloween special is pretty good, but I'm also upset about the fact that they even bothered to put a Demi Lovato song in the Halloween episode, because they already had a musical guest star, which is All-Star Weekend. You could tell that they were just out of ideas. They literally had no ideas for the Halloween special, because almost all of the jokes are really bad. Like the Halloween do's and don'ts segment that they put in is actually first draft. Like, it's actually something that I would have come up with if I was drunk in a bar and just wrote it on a cocktail napkin and brought it into work the next day because I was hungover. Like, that's how bad the jokes are for that scene. They did dress up Shaquille O'Neal as Chad Dillon Cooper, though, so I did like that. What makes it even more obvious that they had no ideas for that episode is that they put 2 musical segments in to pad the runtime. They were like, okay, we're going to have All-Star Weekend be like the musical guest star, which is cool. I liked that when they would do, you know, so random episodes within episodes of Sunny with a Chance, they would have a guest star. It was cool. It worked really well. But then to also put a Demi Lovato song is clear that, like, they couldn't think of another sketch to put in for that time, you know? So they just put another song in there. They said, hey, Demi, play a song for us. It was so bad. Except for Making Babies Cry, which is the funniest sketch in the whole show. Also, the Check It Out girls were pretty good in that episode. But it's like, I'm just shocked that they couldn't think of anything better, you know? It's quite wild in my opinion. the real princesses of New Jersey would have fit perfectly in that episode. I was surprised that they weren't in there in the first place, because I thought the Halloween special is when they like debuted or when they had an episode, but no, they didn't. You really could have worked on that premise more and put it into that episode, because it's a really funny sketch. Like, I can't get enough of that sketch, so there's my opinion on that. I noticed as I'm reading my script that I start every character section with insert character here is very interesting within the show. Like, yeah, they're all fucking interesting. That's why I'm talking about them. God. So Nico and Grady are a dynamic comedy duo who are constantly getting up to fun and silly hijinks. One thing about Sunny with a Chance that you must know is that all of the characters get up to fun and silly hijinks. There's not like a serious one, you know? I guess maybe Chad could be considered like a character who isn't like actively pursuing hijinks. They kind of happen to him, but I think that's only a result of the fact that he's not a member of So Random. It's almost like the whole So Random cast. What did Chad call them? The Randoms or something? He called them like, he used their show name as like a derogatory slur, and I find that quite funny. But the Randoms kind of have a personality trait where they're like kind of constantly, you know, in other people's business and constantly causing mischief for themselves just out of sheer boredom. And, you know, Tawny does it in a very different way from Nico and Grady, so that's pretty cool. I like that that's something that they can be bonded with, is that they're all troublemakers. They're all lollygaggers. Dilly-dalliers, if you will. They seem to be the duo that, like, come up with the most sketches, and also the ones who do the most not important stuff. They're runners, you know, they're B-plot fodder, and I think they fit perfectly within that realm. Some of my favorite elements of the show is when, like, Sunny, Tawny, and Chad are, like, all having drama with each other, and then Nico and Grady are in the corner, like, the security guy keeps stealing our pizza. You know, they just do random bullshit around the studio in between filming, and they have a good time. I guess that is what's different between the Mackenzie Falls cast and the So Random cast, is that in So Random, they only have to record once a week because it's live, so they're only ever really rehearsing in the, like, costume studio, I think is what it's called. In the costume room, which is, like, ridiculously large. It's basically, like, their rehearsing room / costume room, you know? Which is, like, one of the main sets of the show. It's, like, where the characters are usually hanging out. If they're not hanging out in their dressing rooms, which, by the way, Nico and Grady don't even get their own dressing room, like, they don't get a room for it. Tawny and Sunny share one, and Zora technically shares it with them, but her dressing room is the fucking air vents, where there's a bunch of dust and bugs, because that's just kind of the person she is, you know? The air vent is like a running gag, by the way. I should have mentioned that. Like, multiple people will show up in the air vent and, like, you know, pop in and be like, hey. So it's like a climbable set. It's pretty cool. But I like that that's, like, usually where Zora hangs out. Like, the three of them are supposed to share the dressing room, but Zora's like, nah, I'll have the air vent. Anyways, like I said, Nico and Grady just do the most random shit. Like, there's an episode where they want to drink from a slushy machine, like, straight from the machine. Like, just put their mouths up to it and let the slushy flow into their mouth. Like, that's all they want to do. That's it. And the security guard keeps telling them, hey, don't do that. Like, I love that. I think that's hilarious. Like, that's genius. You know, like, I could never think of something that brilliant. And it doesn't seem like it's lazy, like they couldn't think of a reason why they wanted to, or like they couldn't think of a better thing for the characters to do. No, I purely think that the writers were like, wouldn't it be hilarious if they were doing the most stupid shit ever, while Sunny and Chad are like, like trying to double time this guy? Like, it's a great episode. That's the first real Channy episode that exists, and Nico and Grady are great in it as well. Clearly what they're doing is wrong. Like, it's very unsanitary to, like, put your mouth onto a yogurt machine or a slushy machine and, like, have it funnel into your mouth. Plus, as soon as your mouth is full, it's just gonna gush everywhere. It's just really gross. But, like, they're so passionate about it that I can't help but root for them, you know? I feel like that's where Nico and Grady are the most perfect, is that they're doing something really stupid that doesn't make sense, and this is basically a cartoon at this point with how ridiculous their plot is, but they're so passionate and the actors sell it so well that, like, you can't help but want to root for them. Also, like, they're not just, like, silly, goofy guys who have no idea what's going on. In that same episode, like I said, the Channy fake dating episode, great one to watch, guys. But once they see that, like, Chad and Sonny are, like, dating, you know, they're on, like, their fake date or whatever, they get, like, really concerned and, like, want to, you know, make sure Sonny's okay. Like, they're fully dimensional people. They stop on their slushy quest to see how Sonny is doing and making sure she's okay and not, like, you know, being, like, tricked by Chad or whatever, because they all hate Chad. There's not much to understand about them outside of their dynamic together. We do know that Nico is the more, like, attempting to get with girls type, you know? Like, he wants to seem suave and cool, but mainly he's just kind of silly and ridiculous. And Grady is... well, he's the dumb one. Grady actually is the one that gets the most development out of the two. He actually gets at least 2 episodes dedicated to, like, him and his, like, backstory in life, versus Nico, who just doesn't. I feel like Nico and Zora are the most underutilized and underprivileged characters in the show, because they don't get their own little moment, you know? Like, Chad gets a lot of moments, and of course Sonny and Tawny and Grady all get, like, backstory plots and, like, you know, other things to do. And Nico, of course, since he's, like, half of a comedy duo with Grady, is there a lot of the time, but he doesn't get his own personal backstory. And Zora isn't even there for, like, more than half of the episodes, so, like, I think she's the most shafted out of all of them. But with Grady, we do get 2 episodes where we explore his family life. So we know that he has a very annoying older brother who is, like, a stereotypical 2010s frat bro, you know? The actor does a good job of selling it. Like, I really do believe that this guy is a 2010s frat bro. Like, I wouldn't trust myself alone with him. I wouldn't trust him with my drink. That has nothing bad to say about the actor. The actor's fine. It's just the aura of the character. Yeah. In a season 1 episode... no, it's season 2. Yeah, so we don't get any development with him until season 2. Wow, that's wild. In the season 2 episode, we see that Grady is, like, FaceTiming, you know, on Skype with his older brother. And the joke is that, like, his older brother is constantly demeaning him. So the whole joke with Grady and his family is that, to pull from Kian, it's like Maddie torture porn, basically. The whole joke is that everyone hates him. And it's like, how could you hate him? Because he's, like, a literal golden retriever. But, like, his family hates him and doesn't see him as, like, valuable or worthy of love. It's, like, actually kind of a darker joke when you think about it. Because, like, the entire time his brother is just like, oh, yeah, mom loves me. I'm the favorite child. And then it's, like, basically confirmed that, like, that's true. That, like, Grady has been very heavily neglected in his family. And they try to soften it by showing that, like, Grady's older brother is, like, kind of a loser. You know, like, he's obsessed with, like, this frat bro dude college life, but he still lives at home, and he's not that smart. So, like, you know, he's not going anywhere, but Grady is, like, doing something with his career. But, like, when you think about that joke, it, like, it hit me while I was watching the show. I was like, wait a minute. So he's from, like, a Midwest town or whatever, right? And Grady is in Burbank, is in LA right now, recording, you know, having a career. And I was like, is Grady emancipated? Like, does he doesn't live with his family? I mean, if I'm remembering wrong, you know, someone let me know, because maybe he lives with, like, his father or something, because that's a big thing that they represent in the show, is that usually families will, like, split up, you know, so, like, one, a married family, like, the mother will go with the kid to go live, and then the father will stay with the other kids or whatever, right? So they represent that pretty well. I'm pretty sure that's the case for Sonny. I don't think her parents are divorced. It's just that the mom and Sonny live together and the rest of the family lives at home. I forgot to mention that she's a fucking cow person. She's from Wisconsin. Ugh. These jokes about, like, Grady's family hating him and thinking he's lame, like, really add this layer, this secret, you know, probably unintentional layer of, like, really, like, sad, like, character development. Like, Grady was a talented and smart and funny person and wanted to pursue a career in the arts, but his family didn't care about him at all, so he got emancipated and he went out and he got that job, and he's, like, he's famous now. You know, like, he's a relative celebrity. There's another episode where Tawny is upset that the So Random cast don't have cool reputations because when they get reported in the magazines, it's always about silly costumes that they wear out in public when they go out and hang out at the clubs or whatever. And it's like, they're getting reported on in the magazines about, like, being famous, popular actors. Like, that's wild to me. Grady had to, like, triumph over all of this adversity to get where he is today, and he's just, like, this happy-go-lucky, hanging out dude. Like, no one even, like, really knows or cares that, like, he's in this... he has this, like, intense family trauma. It's great. Like, that's... I kind of like that that's not, like, heavily harped on. It's just kind of there. But I do like how Sonny and Grady being a romantic couple is not even considered. Like, they do a good job of showing that they're really good friends with each other. And it was a good time to pair these two characters up together because they weren't really paired up all that often. Again, Nico and Grady are always together. So, like, to kind of split them up is pretty cool. I think they make a joke about that too, is that, like, Nico and Grady didn't hang out for this entire episode. And, like, isn't that bizarre? Something that I noticed a lot, and maybe this is just because I recently watched an episode of Life with Boys with Cameron Kennedy in it, because, you know, I'm so obsessed with My Babysitter's a Vampire that I watch other TV shows that they've only guest starred in for one episode. And I watch the singular episode just so I can see them more, because, you know, I miss the show so much. So I was watching an episode of Life with Boys with Cameron Kennedy in it, and it's like, it's this weird episode where, like, the main character girl is like, it would be weird if me and my friend, who you only see for this episode and never again, were to go on a date, right? And he's like, no, I'd love to go on a date with you. And then, like, they play it off as, like, a really cool lesson where it's like, maybe it just doesn't click on the other end, and that's fine. But, like, and that's fine in itself, but I kind of hate how that's always the case. Like, does every guy want to fuck the main character girl? Like, that doesn't sound right. And so it makes complete sense that, like, Grady is just as uncomfortable with having to fake date Sonny as Sonny is with having to fake date Grady. Like, the dynamic is a complete opposite to how it was with Channy, which shows you why Channy is an actual proper love interest and why Sonny and Grady... Gunny? Granny? Why Granny isn't a proper love interest, you know, ship to consider. Because they're just friends. And, like, that's good. Like, I like that. You know, that was actually pretty smart on their end. They, like, intentionally chose to show that, like, Grady is just not as into Sonny as the other way around. And Sonny is, like, offended, but, like, Grady wasn't offended, so it shows... Again, it's actually quite smart. I like it a lot. The brother shows up in another episode where he takes Chad Killen Cooper's job, and of course Grady feels upset because it's like, this is the one thing he has for himself, and now his brother's trying to take it from him, but his brother ends up being incompetent, so he ends up leaving, and it's great. Anyways. But as for Nico, like I said, as far as I'm aware, not much is known outside of that. So let me get into some headcanon territory. I love giving headcanons for shows, and, like, knowing that it's not true in my mind, but still, like, pretending it is. It's wonderful. I do it all the time with Mabav. I have a great time. My headcanon is that Nico and Grady live together in an apartment. They're just bro friends, you know? They hang out every day, all the time, and go back home and hang out and do all this kind of stuff, you know? And they just live together. Because we don't hear anything about Nico's family life, so I'm just going to assume that, like, him and Grady just own an apartment together, you know? And that's why their bond is so strong, and that's why their comedic chops are so good. Another thing I want to mention about Nico and Grady is that this is another Disney Nick beef thing. I didn't expect this to be as common in the video, but now as I'm, like, talking about it, I'm like, oh, there's a lot more stuff than what I just detailed at the beginning. So the Nico and Grady dynamic seems pretty similar to that of a dynamic in a show called How to Rock. I talked about How to Rock on my channel previously in my video about Swindle. Go check that out. I love Swindle. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Not just of, like, TV movies, but, like, ever. I love Swindle. It's a great movie. That movie had two actors in it who were already, like, a dynamic duo in How to Rock. So it was like, you know, Nickelodeon TV show synergy, which is what Disney Channel did a lot with their DComs as well. But the characters in How to Rock are literally just carbon copy of Nico and Grady. And How to Rock came out after SWAC instead of before, like with iCarly. So I truly do think this was like, they stole it, you know? Because, like, even the characters' races line up with their, like, jokes and stuff. Like, it's a bit too obvious. Kevin and Nelson are literally just Nico and Grady. to a very alarming degree, in my opinion. I mean, Noah Crawford isn't doing the whole Jack Black thing that Doug Brochu is. That's another thing that's very important to mention. That's another important thing to mention about Grady, is that he's very clearly, the actor is very clearly, like, you know, doing like a Jack Black impression. Like, he's very much, like, you could tell, like, that's his comedy style that he's going for. And, you know, since they're all young, there was a young cast, it's a little bit too obvious, but I don't blame him. You know, Grady is different enough of a character than, like, the Jack Black character that we all know, that I think it ends up working out. But yeah, I feel like How to Rock really, really did rip off. And I mean, yes, in How to Rock they are musicians, so that's, like, a little bit different instead of, like, comedy writers. But it was so obvious when I watched How to Rock for the Swindle video that, like, I felt the need to mention it here in SWAC, because I think I briefly talked about it in the Swindle video, but, like, I definitely wanted to, you know, mention it here as well. So if you watch How to Rock, let me know. No one watches either of these shows, so, like, that's why no one's talked about this. But I feel like it's, like, so obvious. So yeah, there you go. I love Nico and Grady because they're just constantly doing random stuff on the studio set, on the studio lot, just hanging out in between rehearsing and shooting, while everyone else is just drowning in drama. Good for them.